Sometimes paint manufacturers describe a color as having certain undertones. So what does that mean? Hi everyone, it's Carol from Discover Interior Design, and I'm so glad you're here. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about what undertones are and how to use them and think about them when you are choosing paint colors. So let's get started. So first, let's take a look at paint colors and find out what undertones are. So when we look at a wall paint color, there is a main color that we see. We can identify a color as being red or tan or even white. And those are what we refer to as just kind of the overall main color. But then there are colors inside that color, colors that are mixed up together to help create a certain version of each of those main colors. And we can think of those as undertones. And so a tan, for instance, can be tan. We recognize it as tan or beige, but then the undertones, those other colors that are mixed into that color, help to create kind of a yellowish undertone, or it could be even a reddish undertone. And it just depends on what mix of colors are in there to kind of add another layer to the main color. And if we just think about the word tone, tone just has to do with kind of how intense a color is. And so the word undertone kind of just lets us know it's kind of underneath the main color, but it's something that's important in how that color will look and feel to us. And if you've ever gone to the paint store and stood there while they mix the paint color that you selected, you'll notice they'll start out with a main color, a base color, say like white or gray, and then they are adding in other little colors. They have a formulation of how to create the certain color that you ordered. Well, you're probably wondering, why did they add some green to my white paint, or why did they add blue to that white paint? Well, we can think of those just as the undertones, so that all of those colors are blended together to create the special characteristics of the white paint that you ordered. So why should you pay attention to the undertones of a color? Well, it's one of the ways that you narrow down your choices on which version of a color to choose. It has to do with how that color is going to look and feel. Is it going to look warm and cozy or more energetic? And also having just to do with different colors that you're using. So it's one of those important, essential things to think about and to notice. So when you are choosing color, that you choose the one that is going to make sense for you. And there may be times when you even describe the look and feel that you want to a paint color. And so you may even say, I want a gray that has kind of a warmer feel to it. Well, what that's kind of describing are the undertones. So you would choose a paint, a gray paint, for instance, that has more of an orangey or yellowy undertone to it. So it brings out a warmer look and feel. So how do you know what the undertones are of a color? Well, there's a couple ways you can check on that. One way to do that is just to identify the temperature of a color. And color temperature just has to do with how a color looks and feels to us, if it looks kind of warm or if it looks kind of cool. And in general, colors that look and feel warm to us will have yellow, reds, and oranges in them. And for colors that look and feel kind of cooler to us, those colors will have more blues, greens, and purples in them. So one thing that's happening when you notice the color temperature of a color, that's letting you know that there are certain undertones in that color, mixed into that color to help create either a warmer or a cooler look. So we could take a look at two different versions of white paint. And one we could kind of identify as having a warmer look to it, while the other one has kind of a cooler look to it. So that's letting us know that those paints have different color combinations in there to help create either a warmer or a cooler look. And then we could also dig a little bit deeper. If we look a little bit closer, we can even identify what maybe those undertones are. Maybe on the warmer white, we notice that maybe there's some more kind of rosy, orangey tones that are happening in there. And then when we look at the cooler white, we may notice that there's some greenish or bluish undertones that are helping to create that cooler look and feel to that white. And another way that you can notice what undertones are coming out in a color is through the lighting that you have. And of course, lighting in our home changes throughout the day. And in the day, we'll have natural lighting, and then at night, we'll have artificial lighting. And of course, depending upon where your room is located and where your windows are, and a lot of other factors, all of that will contribute to what we can call the color of light. And so if a color of light is kind of on the warmer side, or if it's on the cooler side. And depending upon what type of lighting you have going on in a room, that's going to kind of subtly change throughout the day. But also, it will bring out undertones. And so maybe in the day, you have kind of cooler light because your room faces the north. And maybe that's bringing out some cooler tones of a wall paint color. But then maybe at night, there's this subtle change happening because the light bulbs that you have in your lighting are more on the warm side. So maybe it's kind of bringing out some warmer tones of a certain color that you have going on in your home. So that's why it's always kind of important to try out paint colors on your walls just to kind of see how that's going to look and feel. Also for you to notice what kind of undertones are happening and if that's something that makes sense for the look and feel that you're going for. And if you want to find out more information about how light affects color, I'll leave a link to that video in this video's description. So what are some ways that you can work with undertones to create the look and feel that you want in your home? So there was a great comment in my video on using orange and blue together as a color scheme in your home. And this viewer was asking what accent color would go well with gray. And this was a really great question because it kind of opens up the door to talk about undertones. Because one thing that you can think about when you want to combine colors and bring in other colors is to think about the undertones. And this can be with gray or any other color that you're using. And one thing to think about is if you want to bring in another color, do you want to accentuate the undertones or do you want to kind of provide some contrast? So when we're talking about gray, well, gray is available in a lot of different versions. It can be available in cooler, more blue versions, as well as warmer and more yellowy, orangish versions. And so for instance, if you wanted to accentuate the bluish undertones of a gray color that you're using, then you could use other colors that relate to that or are similar to that. So that could be other blues or other greens or even purple. And then if you want to make more of a contrast and to have more of an accent color, then if you have a bluish gray, we can refer back to the color wheel where we will see blue is opposite orange on the color wheel. And then that's what we call a complementary color scheme. Well, that would be kind of a cool combination. If you have a bluish gray, the bluish colors are kind of those undertones of the gray. You could add in a fun accent color just by using orange in different areas of the room to provide a lot of variety and contrast. And then the other thing that you can think about is really using this information to help you plan ahead of time how you want a room to look and feel. So deciding if you want a room to look and feel kind of warm and cozy, well, that information is going to help you look for, say, white paint colors that are more on the warm and creamy side, that have kind of a creamy and warmer undertone happening in them. And that's a neat thing to know because it helps you narrow down your choices and you don't even have to worry about looking at those cooler whites. So I'd love for you to take a moment in your busy week and see if you can identify undertones in the wall paint that you have in your home or when you're out and about. And just notice if those undertones are creating kind of a warm or cool effect, or if you can even identify that there are certain undertones or certain colors in those undertones that are creating that effect. And let me know what you find out in the comments and if you have any questions. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.